It took over 2 decades for a cornerstone franchise of Japanese pop culture to make its way to the United States, but when it did, it created a whole new segment of the retail and collectibles market, and it helped break an entrenched system of animation adaptation, ushering in a new era of appreciation for works by Japanese creators in the US. I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Gundam Wing. Thank you to Sheath for sponsoring this video. Use promo code TOYGALAXY to get 20% off your order today. Atten hut! I need your eyes up here while you're thinking about down there. Sheath have a new mission for you that might seem impossible. You've got to deliver the package cooled down, dry, and looking good. And Sheath is here to help with underwear that features separate compartments for maximum support and performance to prevent contact for long durations, which can build up heat and moisture, all wrapped in spandex with a designer eye-catching waistband that comes in a variety of themes, color schemes, and styles. Sheath underwear was invented by a United States Army soldier during his second tour in Iraq, where he found himself in situations he wasn't prepared for, the heat and humidity coming from his friendlies. Save your day and get your package delivered by clicking the link below and using code TOYGALAXY at checkout, or go to sheathunderwear.com/TOYGALAXY for 20% off. That's sheathunderwear.com/TOYGALAXY, or just click the link below and use code TOYGALAXY for 20% off. Thank you again to Sheath. Gundam Wing is a 49-episode animated series that originally aired on TV Asahi in Japan in 1995, but came to the United States 5 years later on Cartoon Network's Toonami block of programming in 2000. It was part of a surge of Japanese pop culture into the US that began in the late 90s, along with brands like Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z. Thanks in no small part to cable television, the emergence of the internet as a viable means of hobby indulgence, and, strangely enough, the newly implemented TV rating system. In the distant future, humans have created massive orbiting colonies in space. The colonies, full of people who have never lived on Earth, no longer want to be governed by Earth. But Earth literally isn't going to let the colonies go without a fight. The government of Earth, the United Earth Sphere Alliance, maintains their grip on the colonies through military might, with weapons and many of its politicians provided by a group called the Organization of the Zodiac, or Oz for short. While Oz is part of the Earth Alliance military, it is technically owned and operated by a shadowy cabal called the Rockefeller Foundation. To fight back, 5 of the colonies have each sent to Earth a special weapon called a Gundam, a giant heavily armed mech suit distinguished by the advanced Gundanium material they are constructed with, the unique weapons they wield, and the skill of the pilots that control them. Duo Maxwell in the Gundam Death Scythe, Troa Barton in the Gundam Heavy Arms, Katra in the Gundam Sandrock, Wu Fei in the Shenlong, and Hiro Yui in the Wing Gundam. The 5 Gundams are secretly deployed to Earth through Operation Meteor, determined to destroy Oz and all of their weapons of war, freeing the Earth government from the Rockefeller Foundation's grip, and thereby freeing the colonies. Mobile Suit Gundam Wing first aired in Japan in March of 1995 as Shin Senki Gundam Wing, or New Mobile Report Gundam Wing. It was the 6th entry developed as an original television series in the overall Gundam franchise that began with Mobile Suit Gundam in 1979. Mobile Suit Gundam was a revolutionary approach to telling giant robot stories. The market before 1979 had been saturated with magical or godlike super robots. Where the robots came from, how they were created, wasn't as important as defeating the various aliens and giant monsters. Yoshiyuki Tomino created Mobile Suit Gundam to tell a more realistic story about the horrors of war in the future. He wanted to tell a story that demonstrated the impact of war on economies, communities, and the emotional impact of the people who had to fight on the front lines. Mobile Suit Gundam introduced the concept of Gundams as a type of giant piloted mech, but also the storytelling approach to giant robot cartoons that were more grounded in reality. An entire subgenre focused on real robots was born from the efforts to move away from the super robots. Mobile Suit Gundam also kicked off a plethora of Gundam-related merchandise that would keep the franchise growing for decades to come. From comics to toys to clothes to video games, but especially plastic model kits, a product that has become synonymous with the Gundam brand to the degree that it has its own name, a portmanteau of the words Gundam and plastic called Gunpla. Check out our previous video about Mobile Suit Gundam if you want to get into the story of the original series with a little more detail. That said, Gundam Wing is not part of the Mobile Suit Gundam timeline or even that original universe. See, sometimes a franchise can be so popular and last for so long that the creators need to take it in a different direction to keep it fresh and interesting, or to explore new ideas or new interpretations of characters that wouldn't fit within the established narrative. Maybe they want to introduce some new variables, or try to make it accessible to new audiences who didn't connect with the original version, or just out of respect for the original story that has already reached a point of closure. Gundam Wing was the second Gundam series in a row to reinvent what the Gundam franchise could be. The year before, Mobile Fighter G Gundam celebrated the 15th anniversary of the Gundam franchise by turning the whole thing on its head, absolutely abandoning almost everything that made Gundam Gundam, from the real robot sensibilities to the central narrative of politics and the wars that it begets. Mobile Fighter G Gundam was a return to the super robot era, with absurd, colorful designs, fantastic powers, and Gundams utilized as gladiators in a global sporting event instead of weapons in a sprawling space war. G Gundam did exactly the two things it was supposed to do. 1, reinvigorate a brand that was losing fan interest, and 2, sell more toys and models and games and all kinds of stuff. Because these shows didn't happen in a vacuum. They are the product of not only writers, designers, directors, and voice actors, but probably most importantly, they are the product of the toy and model companies that sponsor them and license their designs. In this case, Bandai. Bandai is a longtime partner of Sunrise, the company that actually made Gundam Wing, and after Mobile Fighter G Gundam, all parties involved acknowledged that the series could move back toward the original themes a bit, while keeping some of what fans liked about G Gundam, namely multiple Super Gundams with an assortment of cool pilots to choose from. Bandai themselves suggested that maybe the next Gundam series should have a transforming Gundam. That'll sell some toys. After seeing all of the designs for Gundam Wing together, director Masashi Ikeda felt like it covered the spectrum of all the Gundam that had come before it. The drama and political intrigue of the original series were back. There was a range of different Gundams and pilots to suit different tastes. It gave the production the flexibility to do things that were familiar to longtime fans, but push in directions that the franchise had never gone before. To keep the events of various Gundam series straight, Gundam as a franchise has adopted different timelines. 1995's Gundam Wing takes place in a timeline called the After Colony timeline. 1979's Mobile Suit Gundam's timeline, the one with the most entries to date, the one that the franchise inevitably returns to, is the Universal Century timeline. In fact, 4 of the 5 series prior to Gundam Wing take place in the Universal Century timeline. In 1994, Mobile Fighter G Gundam was the first television series to break away from the Universal Century timeline. It takes place in its own individual timeline as well, called Future Century. From there, through today, there have been at least 7 other timelines introduced into Gun canon, including one called Correct Century, featuring mech designs by famed science fiction illustrator Sid Mead, and another called Our Century, featuring a contemporary Earth universe where battles are carried out via a toys-to-life interface that utilizes Gundam model kits as the source of the combatants in a virtual reality game. Gundam Wing wasn't the most popular Gundam series in Japan up to 1995, but it was more popular than Mobile Fighter G Gundam. It was a success. That fan support resulted in multiple manga publications and video games, as well as a 4-episode original video animated series in 1996 called Operation Meteor that retells the events of the Gundam Wing series. And better still, a 3-episode sequel to the original Gundam Wing series in 1997 called Endless Waltz that picks up a year after the final episode. The next year, in 1998, Gundam as a franchise made an attempt to come to the US by way of home video. But in this case, it was 3 compilation movies that distills the original 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam 43-episode series down into a manageable 7.5 hours. It was an attempt to bring the franchise west, but by starting at the beginning. It did not work. Unless you were someone like me who had been out there looking for it since the early 80s, then it was time to order some pizza and forget about all your troubles for a while.
It's a tough mission, but I think you're ready.
If we're gonna save the colonies, we're gonna need top Gundam pilots. Transforming Wing Gundam is the most powerful Gundam in the galaxy. But before you can unleash its full potential, you have to transform it from mobile suit mode to bird mode. That's why we need pilots with an ability to take on Gundam mechanics. To beat the best, you have to be the best.
US television producers and toy companies have been importing Japanese brands for decades, at least as far back as the 1960s with cartoons like Speed Racer, the 70s with Battle of the Planets and Star Blazers. The goal has been to cost-effectively import the work of the Japanese artists while making it fit the rigid US standards for television broadcast and child safety regulations. In many cases, making deliberate attempts to localize or Americanize the properties, dubbing at a minimum, but frequently editing out plot points, political themes, violence, cultural indicators, and characters, sometimes going as far as presenting it as a completely unique American-made product. It's a process that, in some cases, has resulted in the evolution of two distinct versions of a brand, one in Japan and one in the US. Voltron and Robotech, two prime examples from the 80s, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in the 90s. All three franchises finding themselves tied up in legal battles for decades, trying to figure out who owns the rights to which versions of the franchise or blocking the original version of the property altogether, with the mainstream fan base completely unaware that the original Japanese versions exist at all. Power Rangers originated from a series of Japanese live-action superhero programs called Super Sentai. The first Power Rangers series to air in the United States in 1993 was actually the 16th series in Japan. Super Sentai had been around since 1975. Since Saban Entertainment, then Disney, and now Hasbro had the rights to the Super Sentai programs outside of Japan, any attempt to feature the non-Power Rangers versions of Super Sentai are blocked. Super Sentai only exists in the US today and in the foreseeable future with Power Rangers branding. It is a franchise with its own internal mythology, completely detached from that of its Japanese origin. Gundam Wing is different. Gundam Wing is about as close to the original series as was possible without learning to speak Japanese. In the late 90s, Bandai Entertainment had already successfully brought their products to the US market through programs like Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, among others. They were looking to finally capitalize on the decades of success with Gundam in Japan in the untapped market of the United States. There was a new player in the game that was already airing programming that would complement Gundam perfectly. Cartoon Network launched in 1992 with a library of cartoons from MGM, Hanna-Barbera, and some Looney Tunes. 5 years later, in 1997, two things happened that would finally open the door to Gundam. One, the FCC implemented a new parental guideline system that required the labeling of television programming. While this further limited what could be broadcast to kids during daytime hours, it freed up animation targeting adults in the nighttime hours. And two, Cartoon Network launched a programming block called Toonami, which focused on action-oriented animation targeting kids and young teens from age 9 to 15, featuring shows like Voltron, Sailor Moon, Robotech, Dragon Ball Z, and Ronin Warriors. Bandai presented Gundam as a franchise to Cartoon Network, detailing the dedication of the fanbase and the enduring popularity over decades. Bandai was looking for a partner to help them bring a metric crap ton of merchandise to market in the US. They offered an appetizer of 8 episodes of Gundam Wing for Cartoon Network to consider. Jason DeMarco and Sean Akins, co-creators of the Toonami programming block, jumped at the chance to finally bring Gundam to the US the right way. If nothing else, it would be the perfect complement to Dragon Ball Z, which was already a top performer. In an IGN article from 2020, Jason said it was hard not to be interested in a show involving giant robots. Just watching the 7 or 8 episodes we had, we were like, oh yes, we got to put this on TV. He continued, it was a more realistic approach to using giant robots as weapons of war when compared to the things that we as Americans have been exposed to, which are your Voltrons and all the 70s fun giant robot stuff.
In the distant future, mankind has reached the stars, but the galaxy is troubled.
Bandai Entertainment handled the English dubbing, and the voice performances were conducted by Ocean Productions. After acquiring all of the episodes for the series, the team at Toonami put together a dramatic 2-minute trailer featuring narration by Peter Optimus Prime Cullen, setting up the basics of the series for first-time viewers to get excited and jump in hot. Bandai liked the trailer a lot. They would end up using it to promote the brand itself outside of Toonami for years to come. Toonami planned an unconventional rollout. Given the nature of their 24 hours of cartoon programming, they had the luxury of airing programs at multiple times during the day without compromising other demographics. However, the newly implemented TV rating system would limit what they could actually show in earlier time slots. The solution was to run a safe version of Gundam Wing in the daytime for the younger audience, and an uncut version after midnight for the older audience. And beginning in March of 2000, that's exactly what they did. Daytime audience would get all of the action and drama, but they would lose any depictions of blood, swearing, and adult situations. Nighttime audiences, which could still include younger kids, would get to witness the authentic dubbed Gundam Wing experience, which made it dangerous and cool. By the end of 2000, Gundam Wing was one of the top-rated series on Toonami, leading to the airing of Gundam Wing Endless Waltz, the 3-episode sequel series from 1997. Bandai, ready to continue the expansion of Gundam in the United States, offered up a plethora of other Gundam products, from the original 1979 series to 1994's G Gundam to the brand new, at the time, Gundam Seed. For Cartoon Network, Gundam Wing was a programming blessing. It paired nicely with the other shows and helped power 2 different time slots through the afternoon and evening. But for Bandai, it was about getting merch to the shelves, and that they did. Clothing, stickers, backpacks, cards, games, wall scrolls, posters, walkie-talkies, action figures, and model kits. The same model kits from Japan that had been fueling an economy of tools, paints, magazines, and fan communities for 2 decades. Gunpla model kits were received the same way in the US as they were in Japan. More than a toy, they were an accomplishment. In many cases, less expensive than a toy, and with more accessories and extreme articulation, and without the need for glue. Ready to go out of the box if that's how you wanted to build them. Comics related to Gundam Wing were translations of previously existing manga, some of them telling the stories from the animated series themselves, others filling in the time before, between, and after. Blind Target, Ground Zero, and Battlefield of Pacifists filled in the gaps between the original series and Endless Waltz, some of them published by Tokyo Pop, others by Viz Communications. In 2010, a serialized Gundam novel began publication in the magazine Gundam Ace. New Mobile Report Gundam Wing Frozen Teardrop was written by Katsuyuki Sumizawa and takes place over 20 years after the events of Endless Waltz in a new timeline called Mars Century, although it does have flashbacks to the events of the After Colony timeline. That same year, Gundam Ace magazine published a serialized novel called New Mobile Report Gundam Wing Endless Waltz, The Glory of Losers. This novel, also written by Sumizawa, is a retelling of the series that also includes bits from Frozen Teardrop. It was released in English in 2017. The original orchestral music of Gundam Wing was released on CDs in Japan beginning in 1995, and in 1996, Gundam Wing made it to home video game systems with Gundam Wing Endless Duel on the Super Famicom. In 2002, Gundam Wing The Battle was released on the Sony PlayStation. If that's not enough, you can hunt down games like Super Robot Wars, Gundam Battle Assault, or Mobile Suit Gundam Extreme Versus, and Dynasty Warriors Gundam, all of which feature various mobile suits from Gundam Wing. All of the episodes of Gundam Wing are available on both VHS and DVD in the United States. If you want the unedited experience, reach for the DVDs. In 2017, Right Stuff released the entire series again on Blu-ray and DVD. Right Stuff also released a collector edition that has the original series Endless Waltz, Operation Meteor, and a picture drama version of the serialized novel Frozen Teardrop. As of this video, you can stream Gundam Wing on Hulu, Crunchyroll, and Funimation. Within 1 week of airing on Cartoon Network, it was already the top-rated show across demographics during the 12 times a week it was airing. It was such a big deal in partnership with Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z that the market for anime, manga, and all related merchandise was finally established in the US. Opening the door for all of the other popular Japanese animated series before Gundam and after to make their way to the US. From Naruto to Fullmetal Alchemist, Evangelion to Attack on Titan, Gurren Lagann to My Hero Academia. Nope. Not you, Macross. Yes, anime and manga had been in the US before Gundam Wing, but we're talking about mainstream here, not collector shops or obscure video stores, not tracking down videotapes or downloading a shaky subtitled version. Gundam Wing was everywhere. Big box retail. Heck, today you can buy anime action figures at Walgreens. Gundam Wing model kits are still the most popular kits year after year in the US and Japan. Gundam Wing was rebroadcast in the US in 2011, refreshing it for the generation that saw it for the first time in 2000, offering it up for the first time to a new generation that might not have been exposed to it yet, reinforcing its place as one of the most beloved and important anime franchises in the US. The landscape for anime in the US has changed significantly in the last 20 years. Streaming services like Netflix can afford to offer up ample space without compromising their other offerings. It's just another genre to pick from when endlessly scrolling through the menu. But that normalcy, that acceptance, its placement there at all owes a lot to Gundam Wing. Gundam Wing's path to the US is significant because it marks a transition from the old way of adapting or licensing Japanese series for the US. It helped establish a path for direct importation and mainstream acceptance as close to the original as possible, from the series to the products, and it worked. Maybe all it took was a team of giant superhero robots to get the US audience on board. Gundam Wing was a big deal in Japan, but there are series before and after that are still more popular there. No Gundam series since Gundam Wing has been received the same way in the US. For the mainstream US audience, Gundam Wing is Gundam. We could have made it. We had plenty of batteries. Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very, very much to those of you who already are. Thank you again to Sheath for sponsoring this video. Check us out on Twitch at twitch.tv/toygalaxy. If you're in the position to help the channel grow, if you would like early access to the videos ad-free and early, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/toygalaxy. Why are you laughing? And let us know in the comments down below how Gundam Wing has changed your life. Did you buy all the model kits? Have you since replaced them with newer versions? Was it just about the show for you and now years later it's just another cartoon filed away under things I forgot about until I watched Toy Galaxy? I admit that I didn't watch the entirety of the series on Cartoon Network and I didn't get any of the model kits, but I did buy all of the mobile suit and action figures, including all 3 versions of Tallgeese, both versions of the Leo, and the Endless Waltz suits. One of my absolute all-time favorite lines to collect and one of the last lines I can remember that you never knew what suits were coming out or when they would be released. I just walked into a store and was like, what the heck? I think the internet existed, but it never occurred to me to look anything up for upcoming releases. It was 2001. Pictures took forever to load.
Cut.